That cloudy morning seemed calm on the outside, but inside her, a silent storm was about to overflow. Sitting on the edge of her bed, eyes lost in the void, she clutched her pillow like it was the only anchor keeping her grounded. The world kept moving, but she didn't. Short breaths, heavy gaze, tired heart. There alone, surrounded by a silence louder than any noise, she whispered, her voice trembling, almost without strength. If there's anyone up there, anything greater than all this, show me a sign, just one. In that moment, she didn't hear a voice, but she felt something, a subtle shiver running down her back, like an invisible presence was there listening. Little did she know, that innocent request, almost her last breath of faith, was about to set something in motion. And her life, so gray until then, was about to be touched by a light she no longer believed in. Introducing the main character. Her name is Clara. Since she was little, Clara believed in things no one could see. While other children dreamed of castles and toys, she dreamed of angels. She spoke alone, said she felt presences, and often told her mother about dreams that later came true. She grew up being told she was too sensitive, that she needed to come back to reality. But Clara had something unexplainable, a sharp intuition, a faith that guided her through the dark. But life wasn't kind. At 19, her father died in a car accident. Her mother fell into a deep sadness, and Clara had to grow up fast. She dropped out of college to work and support the house. Even then, she kept believing everything happened for a reason. She would say, "Even pain has a purpose." But pain kept building. Years later, she got married, a relationship full of dreams and promises. But life with him turned into a silent prison. Harsh words, distance, indifference. Love became absence, and Clara became a shadow of herself. Still, she tried. She prayed. She worked at a holistic therapy clinic, helping others find peace. The same peace she no longer had inside. It seemed ironic, or maybe a mission she hadn't understood yet. Then came the final blow. Her husband left. No warning, no explanation. He left a letter, cold, short, almost cruel. And with him, he took what little was left of Clara. That night, she sat on her bed and asked for a sign. 3. The breakdown. The following days were a blur. She woke up and went to bed with the same feeling, emptiness. She didn't cry like she did on that first night, not because the pain had passed, but because even her tears seemed to have given up. Getting out of bed was exhausting. Talking to anyone, unbearable. Life's demands, bills, emails, messages, became ghosts she ignored. Friends began to drift away, not out of malice, but because she stopped responding, stopped showing up, stopped smiling. Clara began to question everything. Why do good people suffer so much? Where is God when we need him most? Was she naive to believe the universe had a plan? At night, lying in the dark with her thoughts screaming louder than ever, she whispered, "If it's true that everything has a reason, show me, because all I see now is pain." The most painful part wasn't the loneliness. It wasn't losing her husband. It was the spiritual silence. That connection that once guided her, gone. She no longer felt God, no intuition, no hope. And in that darkness, she felt something inside her dying. So she got up, barefoot, disheveled, pale, walked to the balcony and looked at the sky. It was cloudy, no stars. And with a trembling voice and a desperate heart, she spoke aloud, "I can't live like this anymore. If something's out there, anything, give me a sign, or I'll take this silence as my answer." And then, nothing. A silence so heavy, it felt like the world itself had turned away. But what she didn't know was that her plea had already been heard, and the universe, or something even greater, was preparing an answer. 4. The desperate plea. That night, Clara didn't sleep. She sat on the balcony floor for hours, hugging her knees, staring at the sky, waiting for anything. No flashes, no voices, just wind and silence. She didn't want miracles. She didn't want divine revelations. She just wanted something, anything, that whispered, "You matter." Around 3 a.m. she finally went to bed, and before closing her eyes, she prayed. Not a memorized prayer, but one straight from her soul. "I'm lost. If I still matter, if I have a purpose, show me, please." And she fell asleep. That night, Clara had a dream. Simple, but so vivid it woke her with a pounding heart. In the dream, she was walking through a golden field, trees swaying gently. Then she saw a boy, no more than 6 years old, sitting under a tree. He looked at her, smiled, and said, "You thought you were forgotten, but you were just being protected." She woke up crying, looked at the clock, 5:17 a.m. The dream wasn't just a dream. She felt it deep in her being. Still dazed, she got dressed and went outside. No destination, just walking. She turned down a street she'd never noticed before and ended up in front of an old bookstore, hidden between modern buildings. She felt drawn to enter. A bell rang as she opened the door. The smell of old wood and paper filled her lungs. No one at the counter, no customers, just her and something sacred. And that's when it happened. 5. The mysterious sign. Clara slowly wandered through the bookstore's narrow aisles. The lights were dim, the air heavy with dust and wood, and the silence felt almost holy. She wasn't looking for anything. She was just following something, an invisible thread pulling her forward. Then, as she turned the final corner, a book fell from the shelf. She hadn't touched anything. There was no breeze, but the book landed directly at her feet, as if someone, or something, had pushed it. Startled, she bent down and picked it up. The title on the cover read, "Nothing Happens by Chance." Her heart skipped a beat. With trembling hands, she opened it randomly and landed on a page with a single sentence, centered and bold. "You thought you were forgotten, but you were just being protected." The exact same phrase from her dream. The book slipped from her hands and hit the floor. Her body froze. Tears welled up in her eyes. It felt like time had stopped, like the bookstore had vanished, and all that existed was her, that book, and an invisible presence watching with love. This was it, the sign. She dropped to her knees, right there on the bookstore, and cried, not from sadness and relief, because in that moment, Clara and she had never been abandoned. The silence hadn't been absent, it had been preparation. The emptyman checkout walked out with a warmth that... And as she passed the doorway, she noticed a small wooden sign near the exit, almost hidden. "You are exactly where you need to be." Clara smiled, and for the first time in forever, she felt safe. 6. Spiritual awakening. From that day on, Clara began to see the world differently. The streets had more color. Strangers seemed to carry stories written in their eyes, and all the little coincidences began to feel like whispers from the divine.
She started writing them down, repeated numbers on clocks, songs that played at the perfect moment, words on billboards that felt like direct answers to her silent question. She no longer searched for signs. Now, she recognized them. Every morning, she began to meditate. She'd light an incense, play soft music, and just listen, not to her thoughts, but to something deeper. It wasn't magic. It wasn't mystical. It was a reunion with her soul, with her truth.
With the little girl who used to talk to angels, faith, the thing that had felt dead, was more alive than ever, but not a blind, fearful faith. This was different. It was free, intuitive, rooted, real. Clara returned to work, but now from home. She turned a corner of her apartment into a small therapy space. She used crystals, flower essences, and calm conversation. But more than anything, she offered presence. Clients would often say, "It's like you already know what I'm going through." And she did. Not because she read minds, but because she had walked through the same fire. Her pain had left scars, but those scars became maps that helped other people find their way back home. 7. The transformation time passed. Not much, just enough for her to understand that the pain hadn't been a curse. It had been a calling. Clara's life didn't become perfect, but it became meaningful. She didn't change who she was. She simply remembered. She attracted new people. Some old friends drifted away. No conflict, just different paths. And new ones arrived, drawn by the same frequency she now lived in. She started sharing her story, not as a guru, but as a mirror. She created a small spiritual circle online. She led meditations, shared insights, and told her truth. And something amazing began to happen. Women who were about to give up, just like she once was, began to heal. One messaged her and said, "I asked for a sign, and your video showed up." It felt like God speaking to me. Clara smiled, because at that moment she understood. She had become the very sign she once begged for. The bookstore, the book, the dream, they weren't the miracle. She was. A few months later, she returned to that bookstore. Same spot, same quiet magic. But when she asked the woman behind the counter, "Do you still have the book Nothing Happens by Chance?" the woman looked confused. "I've never heard of that title. Are you sure it wasn't a dream?" Clara just smiled. She didn't need confirmation, because now she knew not everything real needs to be explained. 8. Message to the viewer. If you made it this far, maybe this story wasn't just about Clara. Maybe it's about you too. Maybe at some point you also whispered, "Please, just give me a sign." Maybe you're waiting for answers. Maybe you feel forgotten. Or worse, maybe you stopped believing. But let this story remind you of something. The signs are real. They don't always shout. They whisper. And to hear them, you have to open your heart. Clara asked for a sign, and the universe answered with a dream, a book, a sentence. But the true sign wasn't outside. It was always inside her. If you're feeling something now, a chill, a lump in your throat, the urge to cry, maybe this is your sign. Maybe this story came to you because you're ready to wake up, ready to remember. Don't ignore the pull. Don't underestimate the power of a moment, because sometimes one story is all it takes. 9. If this story touched you in any way, don't leave in silence. Leave your mark. Like this video. Share it with someone who might need a sign right now. And if it feels right, subscribe to the channel. Here, every story is told with heart. Every word is a bridge, and every video might just be the moment someone was waiting for. You are not alone, and you never were. Welcome to the journey of those who chose to believe. One more time.